Hello, hello, and welcome to the Listen Bitch podcast. This is your favorite mindset coach and podcast host, Brandon Lynette. I sound weird. It's crazy. I feel like I'm losing my voice, but I feel great. So who knows? I thought we started out with some allergies and sneezing and a scratchy throat, and here we are. We're gonna push through it, you guys. Um, this podcast is your go to destination for unlocking your full potential and embracing the extraordinary possibilities within you. This is a journey of self discovery and empowerment as you explore that transformative power of stepping into greatness. Come into alignment with your God given power and gifts, unleash your soul, and learn to co create a life that you love. And as you become the writer of your own story, in this podcast, you're going to find the inspiration, practical tips, and the sometimes abrasive nudge to take the leap of faith towards your dreams. You are in the right place. Buckle up so we can unleash your inner badass. Okay, so the more I'm talking, I'm like, man, I don't know if I could put you guys through this. So if you do not hear from me tomorrow, I just want you to know it's because we lost the voice. Okay. We lost the voice, and that's okay. Um, it is Microdose Monday, so we're going to talk about that. I had a message in my inbox on Thursday that has kind of weighed on me. It was one of those casual conversations, and you're kind of joking back and forth, but she's just talking about how she has completely isolated herself. And I feel like a lot of people have done that. A lot of people have done that, especially since that big scamdemic and all the bullshit with that, where we just all kind of disconnected and life changed, right? It hasn't really been the same since all of that shit happened. And I get that. I get that. I was talking about that with, I was traveling, I was doing events, I was speaking. Um, the world looked different. I'm not doing the same things, but I don't have the different, I have a different perspective and I'm in a different season of my life, right? But people isolate. We all get into that. And I want to kind of talk about some things about isolation because I think it feeds into a lot of the current issues of like depression. And I mean, suicide rates are astronomical right now. And it's not just because it's in our awareness. I think it's, a lot of things have changed. Um, Not just the fact that, we're more connected, so we hear about more of it. It's literally we're more connected. Social media is rotting our kids' brains, but that's another podcast for another time, right? So I mean, we've got people that have chosen their identity as like that depression or anxiety. um and then we have like social anxiety. So this is drawing people to withdraw from everything. And once you do this and you kind of crawl back inside of yourself, your problems seem huge. They're just monsters at this point. And I struggle with that. I struggle with that when, the devil is lying to us and he wants us to think, all of these things that are going to demean us, that are going to isolate us, that are going to keep us on this path of, you know, victim, this path of being the victim, right? If your stories are so big and you're by yourself and you're not having conversations with other people and you're not connected, if you're in this constant stress, if you're in this constant, feeling of overwhelm and you've just retreated, that's that's where the devil wants you, right? He wants you to find, you know, that boogeyman in the solitude, right? He wants those stories to be big. He wants you to be overwhelmed, and he wants you to be so confined inside of yourself that you are just afraid of everyone. You're afraid of the judgment. You're worried about how people are going to perceive you. And then everything just seems daunting. Everything after that is huge. And then we've got people who have like all this past trauma, these negative experiences, and you just want to retreat, right? We would rather just crawl in a hole and never have to deal with life. But babe, come on. We came here for this human experience. We want to feel these things. We want to feel the things. That's why we're here. We're not just a meat suit, right? We have this incredible spiritual part of us, this, our magic, that gift of life that is here, that wants to experience, the joys, the pain, every season, right? Not just the four seasons in nature, but like the seasons within ourselves. We want to experience those. And whatever you're going through, it is a season. It is a season. And I know that sometimes it's easier to just retreat inside of yourself, to just ignore everything that's going on. Um, but there's a lot of side effects, in the short term and the long term when you are retreating from yourself. You're messing with your mental health, literally, because you're going to have that lie of the devil where it's going to increase those feelings of loneliness, right? Because all of a sudden everything's going to become bigger. And that means the gaps between you and connections with other people. And the more you are not connected, the harder it is to get back to make those connections. And so that anxiety that you think you're trying to avoid is actually going to be bigger. It's going to be worse. That depression that you're trying to ignore, it's coming, and it's going to look bigger and badder and uglier, and it's harder to come back from that. Social connections are vital for emotional well-being, and not just a mental health issue when you have, you know, totally isolated yourself. There is a problem with your brain. There's a problem with your brain. There is a cognitive impact. The lack of just peopling, okay? It's going to mess you up. And it'll mess up shit like your memory. It messes with shit like your problem solving skills. And then it's, once you start losing it in your mind, your body keeps the score, right? So then you've got these health issues with, you're stressing yourself out. So you have this high blood pressure, you're stressing yourself out. So your immune response is shitty. Um, and when you're not taking care of your body, right, you're losing physical years of your life. So mentally, not only are you not living and not experiencing the human experience like we were meant to do, physically, it's affecting you. And once you start isolating, I mean, it's hard to get that motivation to come back. And that's exactly where this conversation went Thursday. It's just once you start retreating, it just the further back you get, the more daunting it seems to ever come back for that. And then your perspective is it's just fucked up because you have a distorted perception of reality, right? The booger man, the booger man exists, you guys. The boogeyman is real at that point. He's real, and he's all these massive problems staring you in the face, and he's all this insecurity, and he's everything that you like, every flaw and fault you found in yourself. It grows. It grows as you isolate. That's it. So all of a sudden, with your distorted perception of what is reality, it makes it harder to relate to other people. And then you've just increased these feelings of alienation. You're not connected to the world. And this is something that I love the most about my psilocybin experience, is that I got that strong sense of self. And this is so important when you are someone who does try to isolate and tries to disconnect. You need a strong sense of self because it gives you that identity and that purpose. It provides clarity about who you are, what your values are, what your ethics are, what your goals are. It guides your decision making and direction in life. So the self-awareness is key, and it provides that emotional resilience. Everyone's like, how are you not so reactive? I have put in the work to start building that emotional resilience. Am I still emotional? Absolutely. I get my feelings hurt. Ask my husband. Ask my husband when I'm crying over shit. I do absolutely still have feelings, but I also have put in the work to have a strong sense of self so that I don't become those feelings. It's not overwhelming. I can still experience when someone hurts my feelings without that becoming my boogeyman, right? It doesn't get bigger because I'm not isolating. I deal with it. I feel it. I heal it. I release it. I move on. That's it. I change my perspective. I write a different story. And that's the part of creation that, you know, I mean, the Bible talks about this, how creation is always evolving. God never stopped creating. And what happened is that he brought you here to co-create whatever life you want. So you have this incredible power in you if you just really dig deep to find out who you are, especially who you are in his name, who you are, who you were meant to be, and the potential and the power of what he created you to be. Having that emotional resilience, you can cope with challenges, you can cope with setbacks, you can adapt. and your relationships are going to be healthier. You're going to have better connections. When you understand yourself, you have those healthier real life connections. It's not fake anymore. It's not fake. And when you have a strong sense of self, this is where you set the boundaries. I had a great conversation Friday about boundaries. It's not easy for people to set them. And I think part of our story, because I say ours because I've done the isolation, I've done that, I've shut everybody out, I've withdrawn inside myself, and I've done the work. But at that point of drawing inside myself, it became abundantly clear how I could protect those boundaries. And that's something I won't give up. So if you're someone that has isolated, then you're going to come out stronger being able to set those boundaries. And that's very important. When you have that strong sense of self, anxiety and depression aren't who you are anymore. That's it. You have this higher level of self acceptance. And we're talking about, self as far as like your authenticity. A lot of times we retreat because we don't like who we've become around other people too. I know that's a hard truth. We don't like who we've allowed other people to bring out in us and all these things. And when you come back out of your self isolation, having that stronger sense of self, it's easy to be authentic now. No one has the energy to be fake. No one. And when you can live a life that's authentic, just being who you are, that's it. There's no work in that. There's no, you know, you don't have to put on a face. There's no mask to wear. But a sense of self is so important for that balanced, meaningful life. And the thing I love about what psilocybin has done for me is that it has fostered that sense of connection. Like it was almost my tether to, you know, the world, ideally, the world, who I wanted to be. And it gave me that chance to see through the bullshit, to see through the bullshit. I wasn't, it took the boogeyman away. There was no loneliness. There was a feeling of connection. Um, I went through that period of kind of selling out and, doing some of the devil's work. And in that time, um, I felt that crazy spiritual out of body meditation, right? The stuff I don't recommend to people, but that people go crazy for. I felt that, and it made it harder to be here. It made it harder to be here because if you could feel the sense of peace and love and joy that is what I believe, God feels like, is that just warm, content fire. Like there is just peace and it's quiet and it's beautiful. So when you have connected so much out of body, which is not our business, which wasn't our human experience, it makes it harder to be here. So coming back from that isolation, coming back from that loneliness, psilocybin grounded me. It grounded me. And I know that, I was someone who was like, I can't stand people, right? We all say that. We can't stand people. And I'm talking to Ben yesterday and I'm just like, I love people. That's my thing. I love peopling. We talked about how I genuinely, I bartend 1 or 2 nights a week. It's a great break from me, because you guys know I homeschool. I'm here with the kids 24/7, and mom is said like 1,000 times a day. Did I sign up for it? Absolutely. I love it, okay? But I also love not hearing it 1 or 2 nights a week, right? And so we're talking about what's next for us, what the next goals are, what we're doing. And I'm like, man, I don't know if it's genuinely that I love bartending as much as I just need to say that I love serving people. I love serving people. I love people. We're meant to be connected. And part of, getting my life back, getting out of that cycle of anxiety, getting out of that cycle of the fear of rejection or emotional exhaustion, all of those things. Before I microdosed, I just had that mental burden of all of those things. And it was hard to get outside of myself. It was hard to take that step outside of myself. And then the only escape I had was, to flirt with a side of, the world that isn't our business, the out of body experience and the meditation and, you know, just going crazy with that stuff. And we're meant to feel connected. And we all want that. We all want that connection, but we get inside our head and the monster seems huge because we have that fear of being rejected. We have the fear of being judged. Um, all of the mean shit that we've been saying to ourselves every time we see people, we think they're thinking the same thing about us, right? So there's just these huge, scary monsters. And I know that you can relate to that. And what happens is that the longer you stay stuck in your head, the longer you stay isolated, the bigger the monsters get and the harder it is to break out of that cycle. And the way that psilocybin has helped is that suddenly you feel grounded. It is your tether. It is your tether. And then you feel less anxious and you're more open to having those connections with other people. And I have people that I talk to that, are on the journey with me, people that I coach through this process. And it is immediate. It's an immediate feeling of being connected. And not just being connected, but there's an immediate desire to be more connected. And it reduces like that constant worry. So you have the ability to start rebuilding relationships that you thought were over. I have a whole different perspective on so many things and so many relationships in my life, including with my mom. And there's a lot of you that have been here with me for day one, right? You read my first book, Once Upon a Time, Bitches. And, there's a story in there about my relationship with my mom. At this point, I am talking to her. There's still parts of me that mourn like the idea of, what I would want in a mom. And I think probably my kids do that. And we're currently living together, right? So I think that's just something that happens with everyone. But my relationship is different. I have a different perspective and I have this gratitude and, an overwhelming love for her. And if you guys know my story, you know that that took some healing, right? Psilocybin helped me with these perspectives. And, I am starting to at least have an awareness of how important it is for me to start forming other connections. And this happens with a lot of people that, start going through the process of microdosing, is that you form these new connections and you don't have that same fear of rejection anymore holding you back. And this is the thing, you're not just a meat suit and God created you. Your natural state, the core of who you are as a person in your potential, the core of who you are a confident human being. That is your natural state of existence is confidence, open-hearted, with the ability and potential to give out a lot of love. And at the end of the day, love is everything. That is one of the core parts of our potential is to love like Christ loved, no matter what. Without the judgment, just love. But it is a normal, natural thing as a human to forget that. And you've carried all of this emotional weight on your shoulders and you've allowed it to block your ability to be your best self, to step into your potential. And I've watched so many people go through the process of microdosing where it has released that emotional baggage. And for me, it's not just a matter of like releasing it. It is literally where I felt so grounded and so connected, where I can see all the pieces of the puzzle, the tapestry, every thread of the tapestry. And I'm part of that. I'm part of that connection. So are you. You are so important. But microdosing literally showed me who God is in my life. And there's no bigger connection than finding him, finding that love, and being able to pour that out into other people. Connecting should be effortless. It should be fun. It should be fun. Isolating yourself is a trauma response. And when you start weeding through the trauma, when you start healing, you could be more connected. And psilocybin does this. I love talk therapy. I think it's great. I know a lot of people that are, have been in talk therapy their whole lives, but it can only go so far. And if you haven't heard me nerd out on a scientific episode of Microdose Monday, then you need to go back to a previous week. I think even last week I nerded out a little bit. Psilocybin does something magical to your brain, and it rewires everything that we've learned to process in default mode. And that includes emotions. Like our default mode was to protect ourselves, isolate, bury, isolate, don't feel it, press it down. And microdosing is just suddenly everything is lifted and you're able to see the emotion without becoming the emotion. I can have the human experience. I can feel the hurt. I can feel anxious. I can feel these things without becoming them. And my default network is not about retreating anymore. There's no more crawling inside myself because I actually have that stronger sense of self. And it gives you that. It's like wrapped up in a little gift. And microdosing is not something that you're going to get a high off of. It's not something that you're going to, it's not the party drug that it used to be in the 60s. We don't use it like that. I'm pretty sure my dogs are going crazy. It's just not that thing. It's not, it's not going to make you feel any kind of way. It's a teeny tiny minuscule amount. 0.4 is actually my dose still in my 2-year journey, 4 days a week, 6 to 8 weeks on, 4 to 6 weeks off. Super simple process. Changes everything. And I do recommend journaling, no matter where you're at. Definitely journaling. But there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways to get out of, this habit of self-isolation. And now it's just calling yourself out and owning it. And just knowing that everybody feels like that sometimes. And it is just about doing the next right thing. I love you guys. Have a great day. And honestly, I'm not going to make you listen to my voice all week like this. So if you don't hear from me, it's because I sound like shit. I feel amazing. It's so weird to me. It's so weird. And I never get allergies. And I feel like I was sneezing 3 days in a row, just insanely copious amounts of sneezing. It's bizarre. But I'll keep you posted. If you guys follow me on Facebook, that's cool. You'll see the updates. Check the show notes. I've got Listen Bitch donations up if you want to throw a couple bucks to buy me a chai tea. My core supplement is still up there. Brandonthenet.com. This is where you're going to sign up for my newsletters, my love notes, journal prompts Monday through Friday in my Facebook group. It's also linked in the show notes. And if you're ready to start your microdosing journey and you're not sure where to go, I know a guy. In Ann Arbor, Michigan. It is decriminalized there. So the DA is not going to show up at your door. It's shipped very discreetly, already packaged in your 0.4 capsules. And there's a link for that as well. So you guys know how to reach me. I love you so much. Have a great day.